Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Ritika.
Hi, sir. Wishing you a great morning, everybody. Myself, Deepika, a pre final year student of Panimal Institute of Technology and active volunteer at IEEE. I welcome everyone who have gathered here for this webinar, and I really feel privileged and honored to have our today's speaker, Mr. Debajit Malik, to present us a webinar on building engaging user interfaces, a front end journey. He is a software engineer at P360 and organizer at GDG Siliguri. It's really grateful to have you here today, sir. On behalf of Panimal Institute of Technology Student Branch, I welcome you once again, sir. Now I call upon our today's speaker to deliver his content.
Uh, Hi, Deepika. Thanks for introducing me. So, hi everyone. My name is Devajit. So, I am currently working as a software engineer at P360. So, I'm majorly working front end. Let me just share my screen. Just tell me when my screen is visible. Is my screen visible right now?
Yes, sir. Your screen is
Okay.
visible.
Okay. So today we are going to discuss about building engaging user interfaces, a front-end journey. Uh, the brief about myself is I am currently working for 2+ years in front-end development. So I mostly work on React and Vue. If you worked on any of the front-end technologies, you may have heard about it. This is some of the great technologies right now that is there. So first, let's discuss about today's agenda. So today I'm going to discuss about what is front-end development, how to become a front-end developer, how to develop good user interfaces, and then we're going to talk about thinking about the UX, like what is difference between UI and UX, and then we're going to discuss about web accessibility and web performance. That is what the most important criteria that is there, and then what are the job opportunities, right? Because if you learn front-end development and you don't get a job, then what's the purpose of learning it, right? And then we have if you have any questions, you can ask me. In between the slides also, you can ask me. No issues at all. So first, discuss about what is front-end development. So first thing first, front end previously we normally call about front end people are the people who are developing websites. Okay, so people who are developing normal, simple, static websites. Like if you go into any cake shop or bakery shop and they have their website, right, where you can just see their things, whatever the products they are selling, and that is something we call as websites. That is the people who are developing them are called front end developer previously. Right now, this front-end developer is a broad category, and front-end development is itself a broad category. Front-end development is basically, so previously what happened? Previously we have something called client, like we have a single system. So the back end, front end, both are in a single system only. So on that time we are using HTML and CSS and then PHP for writing logics, and that is a single system where we have developed previously. So on that time there is nothing such as called like front end developer as such. So people most writing the back end code and front end code simultaneously. And later there was something called client server architecture comes up, and what is this is basically front end is a different part and back end is a different part. Now what is this front end part? Front end is basically the thing that you interacted every time. So if you go into Netflix, you go into Amazon Prime, right? All the websites or web apps you are using right now, they are basically your front end that you are interacting with. And most of the people who are right now in front end, the reason behind them is because whenever you write some code, you can see live the code has impacted doing something, right? For backend development, we can just see in the console. So many people don't like it. I also, some of them, like am more of a visual person, so that's why I like more about front end development. Now, this front-end development right now is broadly categorized into three parts. One is like the website or web app. So these two things also right now different. Low website mean we basically talk about static websites, uh, and then web apps mean basically like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Flipkart, Amazon, all the applications that right now you can use in your web, right? They are right now in your app store or play store, but you can use them in your also in your browser also. So you can do every operation that you can do in your mobile app. So that's all called web apps. So mostly we have this one category. Then another is mobile app developer, people who are developing apps for mobile store. They are also front end developer, but they are specified in mobile app. And then there are people who develop desktop apps. Right now this category is not that much popular because most of the time we don't want to install a lot of apps in your desktop, so that's why. But yeah, it's a good field also. So that is another type of development, front end development. In today's session I am going to talk about mostly about front end development in website and web apps. Okay, so this is our today's main focus because I am mostly working those part. So I am like I can share my experience with you guys. The next part is how to become a front-end developer, right? Because that is the first thing. Like if you want to become someone, like what you need to know for to become that front-end developer. First, there are some skills that are required, right? So the first part is learning HTML and CSS, and that's a uh, firstly when you just get started, it's a little bit of easy part. So you can just start with HTML and CSS, and there are not so much logic that is involved, and in and then you need to start using JavaScript. There are some of the tips I want to give you also when you just get started with those. One of them is like when you learn HTML, CSS, don't just go into any website and start learning it. Start with a project. So let's say you want to build a portfolio site, like your own website, that is something interesting that you want to do. So start with a project, and then for that, whatever is required, just learn it on the go, on the fly. So let's say you want to know how to create a link. So like whenever I click on it and it go needs to redirect it into a different page, right? To learn that, just search for in the Google, because Google is the best friend of any developer. So just search for it in the Google, and you get to know about, okay, there is a tag called a tag is there, and you learn about its documentation, like what is there and not, and then you just learn by on the fly. So start with projects, because otherwise, if you just keep going to learn HTML and CSS more and more, it will be like pretty like, because you cannot complete HTML CSS. Like we need to be practical because there are a lot of topics there. So if you ask me also, I don't know a lot of things for HTML CSS also, because these things are a ocean of knowledge. So you just need to know whatever is required only for the job. So just learn that much, and then you need to start with JavaScript. And this time I suggest you to take some time, take 1 month or 2 months, and learn the basics and build projects as much as possible, because that way you can learn better. So these three are the fundamentals of any front-end web developer. So they need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and need to build a lot of projects as much as possible. Then you have something called need to learn after you build let's say 10, 15 projects, and then you need to go into any UI library. So the thing that happens in any company, that we not write a lot of CSS by ourselves. So there are good UI libraries are there, like Bootstrap, and you heard about maybe Tailwind. Tailwind is very popular right now. Then Material UI is there. Just learn any of the UI kit and just start implementing that in your project. So you don't need to. So when you just start learning CSS and you build build projects, you understand like it's pretty hard to write so much CSS, and these libraries will come into picture and then help you to write your CSS better. You don't need to do a lot of things. These libraries like Bootstrap, Tailwind, and Material helps a lot. Okay, and let's say this questions comes up to me a lot that, okay, like I am not good at that much aesthetic and I don't know about a lot in colors and don't know how to build a like good looking buttons, right? The thing is, you are not a UI designer, see. So you are not a designer, you are a front-end developer, right? So you don't need to think a lot about design. So these libraries, right, Bootstrap, Tailwind, and Material UI, these libraries are built by designers. So they are designed by top class designers. So if you go for Bootstrap, that is designed by Twitter, right? It's a pretty big scale company. Material UI is designed by Google. So there are pretty much big players are right now in these libraries. So they have developed it. So you can assure on them that, okay, it's a good design. So you just need to use their components and then just use it in your project. Okay. And that's it. You don't need to think about too much in UI, because as a front-end developer, mostly your work is to implement UIs, the design, that Figma design. There was some tools available, Figma or Adobe XD. Designer in the company, there were people who are designer, UI UX designer. They will design those things, UIs, and give it to you, and you need to implement that. Okay, and so that part is something that you need to do, and another part is most important, that the logic part. So you need to write a lot of logic, okay, in your code, and that is the part where the most complex things are happened, like the logic that you need to write for front end, and then the API integration, all of this stuff. So don't think about too much about like, okay, it's not that much unique design or stuff. Just focus on the functionality, and just take any good library and just use them so that it will look good. And the last part is learn any front-end framework, because right now, if you know, like people are not writing web apps in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So previously I talked about like websites and web apps. The two are both fully different right now. So website means basically any static websites, right? Let's say if you go on to any website where just there are some marketing stuff is there, like any, if you go into any company's website, right, there you don't see any operations. There are a lot of things you can do. You can just see, okay, what this company is doing, and then what are the like about this company, what the services they provide. So there are not a lot of stuff that is there. So that is something that is called as website. So people are building those in using HTML, CSS, JavaScript most. But right now in this generation, when you talk about web apps, and this web apps, what is why this term created? I told you the reason is, previously what happened, like we use apps, mobile apps, as the main interaction point for complex things. So let's say if you have previously Netflix, Amazon Prime, when they just started on that time, they start with mobile apps, because the thing is, in mobile app, that application is installed in your system, in your mobile, and then all the data is already stored into your mobile. So you can just, you open your internet connection, and the transitions are very fast. So like if you go for home to movies, and movies to like web series section, it was pretty seamless, pretty fast. But previously for website is pretty slow. So if you go there, when you click from one link to another link, you can just see literally this loading thing is happening, and it takes a lot of time. So later, this framework comes up. The first one is the Angular, which is the most popular one. So they came up with this concept of web application, and they tell, okay, let's say if we can do one thing, we can just store all the web pages, like all the pages that are for required for this web app into the web, and then just using JavaScript show and hide them, and we can give a app-like experience in the web, and that is something we call right now in web app. So if you go into Netflix, Amazon Prime, Flipkart, Amazon, all of them are right now in web app stage. And as a front-end developer, if you join right now in any company, so you are going to become a web app developer, not a website developer, a simple static site. You need to do complex stuff. That's why right now front-end development is so much in hype. So for that, there are three frameworks right now in the top in the market: React, Vue, Angular. I am not going to tell you in the market lot of buzz right now in React. Right now, I am also working in React, but previously I have worked for like more than 1 year in Vue.js. So it's also a pretty good framework. You can learn any of them, but if you want me to like the learning curve, Vue is very easy to learn for the beginners. It's very easy to pick up, and you can just start and like start with 2 weeks. React is little bit of difficult. So if you have a good JavaScript knowledge, React is also pretty easy for you. But let's say if you are not that much have depth in JavaScript, then React will at first little bit of difficult for you, because a lot of things you need to do in React by yourself using JavaScript. But in Vue and Angular, that are pretty much cooked in. So you just need to use this function, and that will work. And for Angular, it's a little bit of hard to learn for beginners, because you cannot use JavaScript in Angular. You need to learn TypeScript first, and then you need to start writing Angular. So for beginners, the learning curve is a little bit of higher side. So, but yeah, it's also a good framework to learn, and they are also backed by good companies. So React is backed by Facebook, Angular is backed by Google, and Vue is backed by Evanu, who is like very popular guy in the space, and like he is like actively maintaining the Vue, and like Vue has like a pretty good adoption rate. So you can learn any of them. Just pick any one of them. The next part is the main focus of the session, that how to develop good user interfaces. Like as a front end developer, you need to think about user interfaces, right? You are someone that who thinks about how to make a design into reality, right? So like UI UX designers are going to just give you some design, right? And that design works do nothing, right? You need to make it to reality and like do some stuff with it, right? So you need to know how to develop a good user interface. So there are some of the things I don't want to discuss is like a okay, like at a point of view like how to develop it. There are some do's and don'ts I want to discuss so that you can understand what to do when you design a good user interface and what not to do when you design a good user interface. So what are the do's? First is make it simple. I know like when you just start learning, you have this craving that okay, I want to make it like too much complex, too much animations and stuff I want to there. But see, if you go into any big application, like if you work, like if you are using like Gmail and Google application, Microsoft application, Apple application, or like Flipkart, Amazon, or anything, you see there they make the application as simple as possible. They don't using those quirky animation stuff in the application because see, as a user point of view, that's not something good. Okay, some people may not able to understand okay, what to do right now. So first thing is make it simple. Okay, don't make it complex. Create a simple UI or just whatever a designer gives the UI to you, then it's easy for you. If they don't give a UI, then let's say you are building a shopping app, make it simple as possible. So what are the main things that need to be have in the UI? Just put those things in the UI. And then second thing is use typography to create a hierarchy and claim. Now the second thing is we have this thing right when we have previously like we have those old phones and what we do on that time we have some fonts like Comic Sans and that's pretty popular on that time and people are using that font in their phone, right? So you thought like okay it looks pretty cool and things like that, but don't do that much type of stuff in the way. See, many people are not able to read your things, right? So if you write things in a quirky font, that can happen that many people are not able to read this properly. So always try to use a simple font and you use typography, right? So let's say typography means what? So uh, you have a headings, right? Like the most h1 tags and h2 tags. If when you started learn html, you know about h1 h2 h3 and h4 tags, and you need to use them properly, right? So you cannot do like, okay, like I am going to write a paragraph and then I'm going to write a H1 tag. That's not a good thing to do. The most important heading should be in the priority H1 and the least important should be in H6. Let's say, but sometimes it happens that, okay, some heading is, I want that should not be that much priority of heading, but I just want it to look a little bit smaller. If you want to do that, do it using CSS, but use the proper heading text. Okay, don't do that like okay, let's say I just this text is not that much important, but just I want it big, so I will write it with H1 and the next tag that is more important that it, but I am going to write it in H2. So writing in proper format. If you want to change the font size, just use the CSS property, change it, nothing else. Okay. Third thing is create a consistency and use common UI elements. Now the what is this thing? So one thing, so if you go you use Flipkart and Amazon, you see one thing uh, is that they both are pretty similar in UIs. Okay, so if you go into the product details page of Amazon or Flipkart, they both looks exactly similar. So there was a big screen where you can see the product and there are a lot of small screen. When you click on any of them, the product loads onto the UI and in the side you have description, price tag. This consistency. So why people are creating the consistency? You can say, okay, that means like Flipkart or Amazon doesn't have good designers, right? So they create their own design, right? But why they are not like doing that? The reason behind it is the adoption rate. Okay, so let's say I am a user, okay, and I am using Amazon, and let's say tomorrow I get a bad service from Amazon. Now I don't want to use Amazon, I want to shift into any other application. Now my alternative is Flipkart, okay, and I am started using Flipkart. Now Flipkart, let's say Flipkart has a fully different user journey as a interface. Like they maybe have product in a different section and this is a different section. So as a new user, it's pretty hard for me to come from Amazon and then start using Flipkart, right? So that's why what they do, they just make the flow for the user. Like the colors may be different, the fonts may be different, but the journey of a user, they try to be similar as much as possible so that when a user comes from one application to other application, it's pretty easy for them to adapt, right? That's why you need to create this consistency and then common elements that use across all over the UI, right? And what are the don'ts? First of thing, when you just start with development and front end stuff, you have these things like you want to use strong colors, you use this bright yellow color and then bright red color, those things. Uh, See, the thing is, they are not good colors. Okay, so don't use too much strong colors. Always try to use a mix of blend of things. Like, let's say, not too much like proper green, maybe a light green. Okay, maybe not a blue, maybe in a shade of any other blues, right? Like that, because they are like pleasing to the eyes, right? So don't use too much complex and hard colors. Use as light as possible. Try to do that. Second thing is, don't use too much font family. So we have this thing, right? I already told, like, we want to like write things in italic and stuff like that. But see, that's not a good design. Okay, so people, the first thing should be in your interface is the readability. So let's say I just take a screen, just 1 meter away from me, and then I just start writing cursive handwriting, right? It is very hard for you to understand what I have written in the screens, right? So that's why don't use those font families. Yeah, you are using it in your phone to like because it looks cool, you can do that, it's pretty fine. But as per readability structure, they are not that much good font. So don't use that. That is the same thing. Third is, don't forget about the white space. Now, what is this thing? So if you right now see in my PPT, right, what is the amount of space I have taken for writing the things, right? They are very, I just write uh, literally less than 50% in the screen, right? And the other 50% is the blank space. Now, this white space always helps us to read the important thing. See, let's say when we write normally in paper, right? If we just the line height or the distance between two words are very that if they are too congested, right, it's pretty hard to read, right? So that's why white space is something when you develop UI or like code UI, that's very much important. So always have a good amount of margin padding, that's thing, so that it will look good. Okay, so these are some of the things you need to understand and need to do when you develop good user interfaces. Then the next part is thinking about the UX. Now, when you talk about designers, like there is a thing called we are called UI UX designer. UI means user interface, UX means user experience. Now, what is this user experience means? Like they are not they both are same? No, they are both are actually different. So what UI will tell you? UI will always tell you how to look good, okay, how to look better, how to like see we can see a pleasing view in the interface. That is the main goal of a UI. But for UX, that is not the goal. So the simple example is, let's say you have developed a beautiful UI, but in that UI, a user needs to if user needs to go to the payment page, he needs to click 8 or 10 times. That's not a good UI, right? So that is something you need to think about the UX. That there is some part if I need think about what is UX and how to develop a good UX. First thing first, what you need to do when you develop a UX is you need to make sure the number of clicks as minimum as possible. Now, what is this? So let's say right now, if you are using UPI, right? How we use UPI normally? You open Google Pay or Phone Pay, and you enter the PIN, and then you need to click on the payments, and then you need to select the bank account, and then you need to enter the PIN, and then the payment got successful. Right? That is the whole flow. Now, if you are using right now Google Pay and you noticed it, there is a feature called uh, Google Pay UPI service or something like comes up where you can just that's something like a wallet. So you can add money to that wallet and you don't need to enter any PIN. So you just can click on the payment, scan the QR or like directly payment anyone. You don't need to enter the PIN again and again because see, it's pretty frustrating for you if you are like going to tea shop and buying a 5 or 10 rupees tea and you need to enter the pin again and again. So in a day, how much payments you do, right? It's pretty hard for you to click so many times the whole pin again and again, 6 digit pin. So that's why what happened, uh, Google Pay comes up with this idea, okay, let's remove that whole system. So let's come up with a wallet system where people don't need to enter the pin, right? So that is where this UX part comes up. So we need to think about this UX, that first the number of clicks as minimum as possible. So people don't need to click too much into your application. They just easily go to the most important sections without clicking too much. Second thing is ensuring website accessibility. I'm going to discuss it in the next slide. So accessibility means basically anyone can use your application. Now, what is this anyone? I am going to talk about in the next slide. Then don't forget about the mobile UX. See, when you just start with web development or front end development, you start doing for the laptop screen. But right now, if you are doing the web development, I will suggest you start with the mobile screen. Okay, because see, now most of the users are mobile users, right? You yourself, you don't use a lot of websites in your laptop, right? You mostly use in your mobile app. So first develop it for mobile and then just scale it up for laptop. Previously what we do is we develop for laptop and then scale down to mobile. Right now just do well different, because your if your user is mobile first, then start with mobile. That's something important thing, and we call it like mobile first design. So start thinking about the mobile users first. Previously we don't think about a lot, but right now you need to think about it. Then simplicity and consistency are important. That's the, let's say you are using, you have a different section in your application, in the home page and in a about page, and you are using cards. Try those cards should be consistent. So don't make it like this card looks fully different and this looks fully different. Try to be as consistent as possible. Use the same UI elements, so that when a people go from this page to another page, it doesn't think okay the UI changed drastically. There should be a little change. So the main goal for you is to make the user as comfortable as possible in your application. The most important thing, your application should be readable, should be in that page that people can see. Where, like you need to make sure that user, that you whole user journey should be proper. So how you can make sure it? Using proper UI and proper UX. So in using UI you can make it look beautiful, and using UX you make it like it needs to function properly. You need to go with the proper flow, right? The next part I'm going to discuss about the web accessibility part. Now, what is this? This is something I just also put it into my slides because this is something that is very important, but not a lot of people are talking about this thing. But this is something that is very important. Okay. Now, when you develop a web app, okay, right now, you need to think about develop your web app for everyone. Now, that is what is the statement means. See, right now there are a lot of type of different type of people and different type of with different type of disabilities, right? Some people cannot hear, some people are colorblind, right? So when you develop your web app, you need to think about all of the scenarios. So let's say you are developing a web app and for someone who is blind, right? On that case, there was something in our browser. So browser also, like browser vendors like Chrome or Firefox or Safari or Edge, they also thought about this a lot. So they have right now screen readers. So you can just click on the screen reader and the browser will read your website for them because they cannot see, right? So you need to make sure that your website is like whatever the user journey you want to provide for a normal user, right? You need to make sure the same user journey you are going to provide for a blind people. Same thing for someone who is a color blind. Like when he or she sees your website, how it looks like for them, right? When you make it in a monochrome panel, then how it looks like. You need to think about that. So whenever you develop things, you need to think about to make a web that is built for everyone. Anyone can use it, right? So that is something that you need to think. Uh, then the next part is the web performance part. Now I'm not going to first, like this is something that people neglect a lot when they just get started, but later you realize that why it's important. I'm just going to there was a quote I just taken from Google, and this quote says that new research by Google has found 53% of mobile website visitors will leave if the web page doesn't load within 3 seconds. Just think of a scenario. Just 3 seconds that it goes like this, right? But this 3 second is that much important for you, like for a front end developer like you. because 53%, like more than 50% of your users will left your site if your website is not that much fast. So you need to think about web performance when you, like, after you learn to make web apps, right? Basic React and do things, build projects with that. You need to think about this web performance part, because otherwise people will leave your web app pretty soon. Okay. So how we can handle it? First, compress images and use the proper format. So there was this one blog I read about. So this is when you just go with front end development, you understand images are the biggest fear for front end developers. The reason is being are of like pretty big sizes, right? Pretty, they are like in MBs, then like in KBs also it's pretty much big. So it takes time to load them, right? And for a person who is coming into the web, don't wait for like more than 3 seconds, right? So you need to compress them as much as possible and make it in proper format. So let's say you have a PNG image that looks pixel perfect. Change it to something like JPEG or like AVIF. Right now, AVIF is pretty popular. WebP is pretty popular because they has a better compression ratio. So let's say if you have a PNG image which is like a 1 MB image, when you convert it into WebP or AVI, they will reduce down to maybe like 60 KB, 600 KB or 500 KB, right? They will reduce it down, and then if you compress it again, and it will like just came into 300 KB or 200 KB. So make the sizes as less as possible so that it will load as much as faster. Second thing is heavy CSS and JavaScript use reduce performance. So don't use, there are a lot of unused JavaScript there, unused CSS there in your code. Try to like delete them from your code, right? Remove them from your code, because see, those JavaScript files and those CSS files also need time to load, right, in your web app. So don't write unnecessary code. Don't put unnecessary libraries in your code. When you, I know, like when you start using them, you thought, okay, there is this library is there, so I can just use it in my project. But see, that library has also some size, right? So it will reduce your work performance. So maybe there is simple thing, like let's say there was I like we see and we thought like, okay, who has developed those things? Like there are libraries in npm who do simple add operations, like two number of sums. Now, you don't need to import those libraries, right? You can write a simple function by yourself. Whatever you can write by yourself, just do it by yourself. Whatever you cannot, take the help of the library. Also, if the library is too much big, just try to include the only part that is being used in your project, just include that part. Don't take too much dependency of different CSS libraries and JavaScript libraries. That is the thing. Third is use browser cache. So this is something a little bit of advanced thing. So if you uh, there was you can cache the website data in your browser. So you see this thing. If you notice this thing, that sometimes what happened that when you first time load any web app or website, on that time it takes a little bit of more time, and after the second time you hit that URL, it's pretty fast, right? So how they do that? They're using something called cookie storage, cookies, right? And then the cache. So they just cache your that website data in your browser, so that the next time you visit the web, it should be very fast, right? So you can use these things called browser cache and stuff like cookies to make the uh, web app faster than expected. Uh, the next part is the job opportunity part, because see, all the knowledge is unnecessary if you don't know like how to get the job, right? So there are a lot of job opportunities there in the web. There are websites called wellfound.com, then there was founded.com that is there. So then LinkedIn jobs, I just gave some of the links. There are a lot of other platforms are out there. You can just go there and you can like uh, start looking out for jobs. That is the thing. The last part that I want to discuss about is the questions that I got a lot. Some of the questions like they are you can thought of like AFQ type of questions. Like I got a lot. Like okay, ChatGPT comes up. So what's the purpose of learning front end development? Because ChatGPT can automate it. See, thing is, uh, as a front end developer, I can say the problem is when you join any company, right? On that time, front end development is not about just building simple web pages. Previously it's there, actually it's true, but right now if you go into any of the website and you see the salary of a front end developer and a back end developer, they both are same, or like sometimes It's happened that I see some companies, they have salary packages much more higher for front end developers than back end developers. The reason being is right now front end is pretty complex, right? Browsers are changing because when you're developing things, you need to think about all the browser like Firefox, Safari, and you need to think about this Brave browser comes up and this browser company's browser comes up. Lot of things right now is going in the way, so you need to think about this thing. Second is this chat gpt or these AI tools, they can like develop things for you. Yeah, that's the that they can give you the code snippet, but end of the day you need to customize it because in your company you need to answer the questions. There are a lot of requirements that are there in your company and you need to fulfill, and the client requirement changes every day. So if you work for any company, I also in my company also there this thing happens, right? The client requirement changes a lot, and on that time we need to change these things a lot, go to the code. So these, so don't think about this thing like okay, chat gpt is there so it will take my job. No, front end developers are safe, they have a good amount of jobs, so don't worry about those things. This is the one thing. Second thing is like, do I am learning front end, so do I need to learn back end and become a full stack? See, when you are in fresher of your like you are in fresher position, full stack development is something that you can learn. It's pretty good to learn. Okay, so if you know front end and back end, it's pretty good. But let's say right now you're in fourth year and you don't have lot of time, right? And then on that time and you want to just get an internship or job as soon as possible, then learning front end and get a job is easier for you. Because see, when you just if you want to become full stack, you need to learn back end and then become a full stack developer, so it will take some time. So you can just start with front end and just go with it, and then later maybe when you, after getting your first internship or first job, you can start learning back end and become full stack dev. So it's something you can do. And if you have time, let's say if you're in a second year, third year, you have a lot of time, plenty of time, start. You can learn full stack, but it's end of the day your decision. I also started my career as a full stack intern. Later I realized that I am more focused into front end, I like front end, so I shifted into front end roles more. So it's up to you. So start with anything and then do internships, and then you will realize that what is some that this is something you love or not, and then you can go into front end. Okay, that's my thing. And like, if you want to connect with me, these are my LinkedIn and Twitter URL. And also, right now the Q&A is open, so you can ask me any question. You can unmute yourself or ask question in the chats. So if you have anything, you can like ask me. Have any questions? You don't have any questions? Anything? Or like, if you want, you can like connect with me here. Uh, so there you can also ask me questions. And also the slide of this, I have uploaded that slides into the GitHub. So if you uh, want to know about the job website and stuff, I'm giving it into the chat. You can just take it and just go to the slides. Yeah, anyone have any questions?
Have any queries, kindly post them.
Could you explain the latest trend and best practices? Yeah, so see, there are in the front end, the most difficult part, if you ask me in the front end, the part is there are a lot of things that are changing in front end. Okay, so every day there are a new framework comes up, okay, in front end. So there are a lot of trends that are going on. So there was this new guy comes into the picture, that is Svelte. So it's pretty good right now. People are talking that it will become a front end killer for React. So React will not be there and stuff like that. But see, as a front end developer, you don't need to think about it too much. There are a lot of trends right now going on. Tailwind is pretty popular, so you can use Tailwind. You can then there was thing called Next.js. Next.js is pretty popular right now. So every other React developer is right now learning Next.js. So if you are familiar with React and you have a pretty good background in React, then you can go into Next.js. It's pretty helpful and pretty good. I have used it a lot, and it's like its performance is pretty good. You can try out this, but yeah, the thing is, to become a front-end developer and get a job, most important thing is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. See, when you are going to give an interview, people will ask only those three things. The reason is being uh, the in front-end space, frameworks are changing within 2 or 3 years, okay, 2, 3, 4 years. So you need to always keep updated and learn a lot. So that's why if you are someone that who is like right now maybe good in React but don't know JavaScript a lot, so that means that is something a red flag for me, because say maybe tomorrow React is not there, then what I will do, right? So that's why. But in web browser, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are the constant. That will never gonna change. If you are a good background in JavaScript, you can learn in React very easily. You can learn Vue and Angular very easily. Okay. So all this front end framework has the same logic. So that is another thing that is pretty interesting. So if you know React, to learn Vue, it's pretty easy. For Vue, if you know Vue, learning React is pretty easy. So all these framework use the same concepts, just one or two concepts are here and there. So if you learn one thing, it's pretty easy to learn another thing. Next.js. So if you ask me, I don't know about Next.js at very much time. I previously worked in Vue, and then Vue for server side rendering, we have something called Nuxt.js. So at first I learned Next, and then later when I just started with Next, it's pretty same thing. So whatever Next is doing, the same thing in Next is doing for React. Okay, so it's pretty easy to pick up. So some of the trends you can learn for Next.js, Tailwind is there. Then this new UIs, like Microsoft recently introduced their Fluent UI, the Windows 11 that you are right now seeing. Then Google has their Material UI, new Material UI things. So you can try out those things. So these are some of the trends that you can try out in front end. Experience, what are the key skills and knowledge areas front end should focus on studying? Yeah, see, to get first to get your first job, learn these four things only: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. These four things is the most important thing, or React or any other framework I can say. Learn first those four things, build a lot of projects. The thing in front end to be relevant, you need to do a try to do different type of things. So what is this different type of things? So it's a little bit of advanced type of thing I am talking about. So let's say you are know how to integrate APIs. So there is something called REST API that you learn at your beginning when you just started with API integration. So then after learning REST, go to something called GraphQL. There was something called Socket. So if you see application like WhatsApp or Google, Facebook Messenger, they use something called socket connections. Okay, so learn about them. Okay, how to build a real-time application using them. So you need to know this new stuff, whatever new is going on. Uh, the best thing I can suggest is give every day 30 to 40 minutes of time. Like this is I am talking about after getting a job, or also just give 30 minutes to 1 hour every day to learn something new, or to see whatever the dev news is going on. Okay, whatever the new framework comes up, whatever the new library comes up. And the best part is try to go deep into things like what I'm saying. Let's say you learn about something called React and the React libraries. Try to implement React in your own. Okay, so you cannot do like that. You can say, okay, what the shit you are talking, right? You cannot implement React by yourself, right? But yeah, understand like how React works basically, and try to implement that same type of thing in your application. Okay, so like how React updates happen, or how Vue updates happen. Let's say how component lifecycle happens. So whatever thing that you are using, a library you are using, try to implement that library, or like the whatever logic that library may be using by yourself. That will give you a lot of knowledge. Okay, so let's say in React something called React router is there, and Vue also Vue router is there. So you learn about, okay, how to implement this router in React Vue. That's pretty easy. Try to implement that same React router or Vue router in JavaScript. How to do that, right? That is something that will help you to understand how these libraries function. And that is something that will make you a like you can say advanced level front end developer. So you can do those type of things to be stay relevant in the industry. And yeah, always like whatever new comes up, try to pick it up. There was something called don't invest, obviously don't invest like 100% of time. Let's say this web3 now comes up, right? A lot of people are talking that web3 is going to kill web2, but if you see right now the situation, web3 is right now not that much in growing what the people was expected previously. Thing is, you need to be like that okay, whatever new thing comes up into the industry, I'm just going to try give it my 10% of time. 70 to 80% of time, give it what is right now you are doing, right now that trend that are going on. which is stable technologies like React, Vue, Angular. They are stable technologies. They are right now for a like nearly for a decade now. They are right now is there, so you can invest more time in them. And this new takes like Web3 Squared, they are new to the industry. You can just give it your 10 or 20% of time. Just be aware of them. Just build a simple to-do application using them, and that's it. That's it. Yeah. Any other question?
Sir, I hope all are clear.
Yeah. I think that.
Sir, as a token of gratitude, we would like to present you an e-memento.
Sure.
Just a second, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir.
It's pretty good time for me to also share my knowledge with you guys. So if you have any questions, like you can just DM me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm pretty active there. So if you have any questions regarding front end development, software engineering, or anything